Welcome, everybody, to Streaming Keys TV, broadcasting live from Seattle. Today, my first ever YouTube video. So, my first year on Taxi, and we're going to see if you can pick out the forwards. Thank you so much. Oh, shush. See? Production value. We have it. You can tell we are on top of this. This is what happens when you're doing it all on yourself. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Well, hello to everyone there, and big thank you to Laura for saving my butt once again. So this is my first ever live YouTube event. Thanks for bearing with me while we get it all going. All right, so first thing, hi, I'm Bob, and I'd like to be a sync composer when I grow up. Last year, I decided to take the plunge, and I joined Taxi Independent A&R. I'd heard of it before, probably from ads and stuff, but I'd never jumped in. For those that don't know, Taxi's a company that brings together the folks in film and TV and some record companies and publishing companies that need music for productions, and they bring them together with composers. They put out calls for specific needs, curate the best submissions, and then pass them along to the user. They also work amazingly hard to help their composers learn what they need to learn to make it into the forwards group. So that's the basics of Taxi. Most of you don't know me, I'm sure. Composing has never been a full-time gig for me, but it's always been a passion. It's something that I just love to do. I've been writing instrumental music my whole life, and I've put out 11 CDs of varying quality. I have an undergrad from Middle Tennessee State's Music Business Program and worked in copyright administration in Nashville for a while in the 90s. That said, I've never done anything in sync. And yet it's the one thing that I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get there. Didn't know the right folks. Didn't have this or didn't have that. And whatever excuse was up at the time, because there was always one. But of course, since I had this degree and this experience, well, I imagined that somehow I could do it all myself. Today, 25 years later, I'm a university professor in history, and I have exactly 0 placements that didn't involve the term gratis. So that's worked out pretty well for me so far. Well, last year, Laura and I moved to Seattle, and I saw a class on sync licensing offered by Ed Hartman, who you all know. He was on Taxi TV a bunch. If you don't, you should check him out. I think it's edhartman.com. edhartmanmusic.com. So he suggested Taxi during his class as a great way to become part of the community and to get relevant and direct feedback. Sorry, I keep wandering from the microphone. Production value, again. From outside professional sources. So thanks, Ed, because you're the reason I finally got out of neutral and into at least first gear. Well, anyways, one of the recent Taxi TV's featured writer, Greg Croza, and he was discussing his early career music, and he was comparing it with his later stuff to show the progression. It was really good. It really helped show the difference. It really made sense. And so I thought it might be fun to review my past year, my first year, and look at it from the other side, lessons that I've learned. All right, so enough talking for now. Let's get on with the music. It's probably not surprising to you that the big push for instrumental music when I first started was multiple listings for COVID cues, lab-type cues, some sort of disease, virus-type cues. And so that's the first thing. Now, I had to make it a little hard on you. So one thing that I've done to make your job a little harder is I've synced these with some film. I do video editing work on the side, and it's a pretty easy thing for me to drop some footage on top to show what I was going for musically. Of course, they don't all exactly work, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time singing them up. My legal disclaimer here is that the video footage is obviously not mine and merely being shown as a suggestive example. Don't sue me, hire me. As I said, it was a COVID cue. I was going to sync it with CSI Lab stuff, but that was too easy. So I tried something else. Let's hear it. All right. Well, Mutation and Madness was the song. So if you think it was forwarded, or wasn't it forwarded, feel free to +1 in chat if you think it was forwarded, or -1 if you didn't. There's probably not a whole lot of people here at the moment, so I'm going to just continue, and I'm going to assume that everyone went, yes, that was forwarded. So this is what the reviewer said. The reviewer said, the ARP elements are the right idea, but the pitch range was pretty distracting. The references all featured these lines while still keeping them unobtrusive. Pitch range was a major factor in that happening effectively. An octave lower could have been an effective solution to making the main ARP line less intrusive to the listener. Well, my thought was, wow, I never would have even thought of that. Of course, while it completely works by itself, but it's just the wrong frequency to talk over. It's almost the exact same. Stop thinking like an artist, start thinking like a sync musician. And that was like a big aha moment right off the bat for me. I was coming at it from kind of the wrong angle. So the second review, I actually submitted it for two different things. I said same. Adhere more closely to the vibe of the references is a must. The gig here is to fit the client's needs. And again, it was revelation-ish, easy for me to say. It was great to have a second view reinforcement to reinforce the first one. Tone it down, which is admittedly a little hard for me. Keep the goal in mind. So that was a really important step for me. I think it really sort of made me think about it differently. Well, I also did a second COVID cue. This one was for Corpse on the Grating. So let's listen to that one.
To buy no lino, no nothing.
Mr. Zagore, please.
Oh, oui.
Sound, please.
That's exactly what you want your assassin to say. No sound, please. Very, he's polite. He's polite. So the first review came back and said, cool ideas for creating tension, but the beats just weren't a great match for the sounds in the references. Those loops were much more synthy and arpy. Cool ideas for tension, but the client was after a very specific vibe as shown in the references. And the second review is basically the same thing. Listing mentioned subtle muted percussion sounds, which that was not. So my thoughts were guilty. The swishy rhythm was way off reference. I think at this point I wasn't clear how to read and triangulate the references. You know, how close are you supposed to be? Is it supposed to, you know, and that's something that it takes a little time to get, I think. Hearing Michael say it on Taxi TV at least 20 times in my early binge watching system, eventually it started to click. I think I even knew it in my heart when, hitting submit. But, you write it and you like it and you go, oh, come on, the old lawyer's going to love it. And of course, that's ridiculous. So neat piece, great pace line, a little bit on the odd side. As an artist, it's fun, but as for sync, not so much. Absolutely. I kind of feel like a sync toddler here. How far can I push the boundaries? As these were my first submissions, I wasn't sure. But I learned not that far. All right. Well, the truth is, I'm kind of a softie. And I think I do better with things that are meant to uplift and tug at your heart just a little bit. So the next call that I went for was for... Oh, I guess I didn't mention. That one did not get forwarded. Yeah, it didn't. Obviously did not. All right, so this one, they was looking for emotionally uplifting orchestral instrumental cues. And I really sort of analyzed the 3 tracks. I wrote notes many times going through, comparing them. What's the instrumentation? What's the BPM? It was like a math puzzle. We just needed to get the right pieces and put them together. I started this one with a clock ticking, and it took it from an uplifting scene to a death scene right off just the one tiny thing. I went, all right, so that's going to go. As soon as I took out the clock, I was like, that's it. So let's take a listen. Right, well, that was In Time We Rise. And the review came back and said, nicely put together track. Good sound, good emotional content for the listing. They said the piano delay is not a real acoustic sound, but is close to a sound that could be emulated acoustically. And for a more real sound, the repeated note patterns could be performed acoustically, and that's fair. but nice work delivering the emotional impact this client is looking for. Celebration! Forward! So that was my first forward. No, okay, enough celebration, Lights You. Yeah, so it was exactly that. I finally sort of looked at the references, triangulated the center, and there you go. This was also the first time I used the Taxi forum to ask for feedback. And the number one criticism that I heard was that the strings were bordering on synthetic. I record in Cubase, but I've been using the onboard Kronos sound since I bought it. In fact, I have, confession, never bought a plugin in my life. So, the other issue was the resolve at the end of the piece. I liked the idea of ending on a question like that, and everyone said, no, don't do that. I took a risk and submitted it that way anyways, and I was really happy with the forward. I'm convinced it was that extra half second before the kick-in that really sold it. But most importantly, it gave me confidence that sonically, I am producing things of sufficient quality audio-wise, and I just need to hone my listening and responding skills. That it just takes practice and more practice, and I've got time, and I'm looking forward to the practice. So that was good. The video was from nature, and it was beautiful. I thought "In Time We Rise" was a perfect metaphor for spring. When I put the two together, it matched so perfectly. I went, "That's it. That's it." I would love to do nature stuff. I would, some people laugh. I would just that would be a awesome thing for me. I love doing that stuff. All right. So the next one that came up was for emotionally upbeat pop instrumentals or instrumental cues. Well, I had one of these in the bag from a record I put out a few years ago on CD Baby. For this one, at least, I had not checked the magic checkbox, which is something else that I learned on Taxi TV. So I decided to give it a go. For those that don't know, if you're going to do sync stuff, maybe you don't want to assign your publishing to CD Baby. But it's good for other reasons, and CD Baby does great stuff for other reasons. So, you have to decide what it is that you want. I'm not here to play favorites. They're both cool for different reasons. For those that have ever been to New Zealand, you might recognize the call of the tui at the beginning of this. I thought the bird's call was so interesting that I cut it up and made a beat out of it. So let's give it a go. Okay. right. Well, that was Said the Spaceman. And it just shows that you know, sometimes lessons learned don't last very long. If I was an artist making a record, which is what that was from, that was completely fine. But, so the reviewer said, I like the animated fun of this instrumental, but you really need to listen to the references and investigate the arrangements and the overall production sound. The arrangements were very open with not a lot of layers competing with each other. You know, try removing elements until the track gets an open attitude. This track is more urban novelty than current style of pop, referencing, which is absolutely all correct. You know, again, even submitting it, I knew it was a long shot, and I'm not sure why when you're starting, you think, well, maybe it'll work, but of course it won't work because they're not going to change the scene. And after you listen to enough Taxi TVs, you start to get the idea and go, oh yeah, my one tiny track of 12 seconds is not going to change the movie. So there you go. I have tons of materials from the past. My initial Taxi profile pointed out that I had been writing instrumental music for 30 years, just never for sync. It quickly became clear to me after some forum postings and watching the Taxi TVs that you might get lucky and a call will come out that one of those archived songs that you have in the back will be perfect for this call. But the truth is, the odds of that happening are very, very small. Music changes, things go, the chances they want that novelty synth Kraftwerk type song from the 80s that talks about calculators is it's pretty specific. I love this track, but there's very few things that it can be used for. Michael offhandedly said during an episode of Taxi TV that you shouldn't put I've done this for 30 years unless you're really convinced that the stuff you wrote 30 years ago was good. He said maybe they just weren't that good. I paused the episode immediately and logged onto my bio and took that line out and went, holy, he's talking about me. Oh my gosh, I gotta fix this. And in that moment, I realized that could either be a problem or it could be a good thing. I got all of these riffs, I've got all of these ideas, all these chord progressions, just do something else with them. Recreate X and Y style. And suddenly I was like, oh, this is a good thing. So that's what I did for my next set. The next call was for a bunch of solo piano stuff. And I thought, well, I do tons of solo piano stuff. This is a perfect opportunity for me to try this. So I knocked out 3 of them very quickly in a couple days. The cue was for positive, inspiring, piano-based instrumentals. Well, so here we go. Let's see. Right, that was For Better Days. And the review on that said, I like the piano playing and the ideas here. Nice thematic content, good motifs, lovely mood. I was like, rock! This appears to be off more to one side than it should. Solo piano pieces should be in the center. But you need to vary the register, dynamic range, and intensity. And it would be much more compelling and dynamic. It would need to be much more compelling and dynamic to be on the level of the references. She said you might, or he said, you might experiment with some places of rest or space. This is, again, a very hard thing for me because I love just, poking as many things in. And so this was me as a producer going, oh, wow, that's, I need to think about this in a completely different way. And it said a music library wouldn't be able to include this in their catalog because it just needs more variation in intensity, dynamics, and register. Just not quite as strong as it could be. So not bad, likes it, but just needs to be better. And I think that was so good. That was exactly the type of review that I needed on that. So let's listen to the next one. Sadly, they were all done at the same time, so some of them suffer from similar things. Okay, and that one was Recycle Hope. And the reviewer said, I like the calm approach. However, the frequencies could be refined so that the mix comes across cleaner and clearer and more polished. The references were more polished. This isn't as compelling as needed and could be improved sonically to be as competitive as possible. Completely true. All three of these seem to have had, just in the piano sound, some sort of sonic problem, but also they were just too full and too repetitive. It felt to me that a lot of the samples, the examples that were given, had that sort of repetitive motion that seemed like a wheel, and I'd kind of gone for that, but I think I took it too far. I whipped them out, and I just don't feel the passion here. It's just notes. It's not like, wow, that's so good. It's just, it feels meh. And the reviewers agreed. I mean, if you're going to do it, do it. This was very safe and it was very boring. And this was me saying I need to step up and get more emotional and less technical. Overall, the review was... Right. Okay. So the third one was World Weary. So let's do that one. And that one was pretty well the same. So that was World Weary. And they said they really liked how I used effects to create a cool, interesting piano sound. But the listing asked for a more straightforward approach. And the delay and panning are cool, but that's not what the client is looking for. And so, no. Yeah, this was one of those that, I just, of course it was wrong. But, I just, so afterwards I was just like, right. Okay. But I got over it quick. So I was a bit peeved at the piano at this point. So I decided to do something completely out of my wheelhouse. And that's one of the exciting things about Taxi is it's a chance to really sort of stretch out and try different things and listen to what other people were doing and what they're doing well. And that's what's really cool. So in high school, I was in the band briefly as a drummer. So I had encountered drum corps material. So I was clearly qualified to write a percussion cue. Well, we're all here to learn and stretch, so I went for it anyways. Let's listen. There you go. Right. Hit it. Well, the reviewer said, I like the energy and the groove of this. It has some nice rhythms and sections, but it needs more distinct sections, and the sections need to build more from one to the next. I would add more drums and percussions as you progress, and more of an accented 16th note pattern that builds in intensity that's played by both snares and tenors. It needs more layers, more dynamics, more drums and percussion on top of what's here. It needs more of a live sound to build a lot more from beginning to end. Well, they're completely right. I mean, it was a long shot, and I knew it, but I submitted it anyway to get the feedback. And next time, I will know how to do it better. The best thing is that the feedback was very specific. It's very on target, and not all reviews are that direct, but a lot of them are, and I really appreciated this. So that's really cool. So the piano's let me down. Drums have let me down. What am I going to do? So how about the other end of the spectrum? Let's just pare it all back. So the next call was for relaxing meditation instrumental music artists and composers, which are needed by an eclectic independent record label for their next series of meditation compilations. All right. Well, again, I love doing that sort of stuff. I've been doing that stuff for a long time, so I tried to take what I had learned from the reviews of the piano pieces and experiment with space and emotion. And I knew I was on the right track because it became progressively harder and harder to work on this one. the more relaxing it got, the harder it became. After listening to this 19 times in a row, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so relaxing. And I was like, this is the one. So I told Laura, and she was like, submit it. That's the point. So I did. Let's listen. Roast chicken? You never know. Well, the reviewer said, nice cue from front to back. Soothing, reflective, and on point production-wise. Good to go for this request. Celebration! Forward number 2. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. All right. For me, again, I had studied the cue. The bells were in one. The voices were in another. The example cues. The bells were in one. The voices were in another. All of them had lots of space. All of them had some note repetition. This was a nice combo of those things. You know, I felt sure this one would get through, and I was right. And I think that made me happier than the fact that it was forwarded. I just felt like I was starting to get it. Who knows? So, okay, next one. Let's see how far. We're running fast on time. Okay. I'm gonna just. No, we're gonna move on. So the next one was a lo-fi hip-hop instrumental. Was the call? They said something a teen might listen to while studying, with a mixture of wet and dry sonic textures. Well, I'd never written anything like this before either, so again, this was a chance to stretch a little. I'd just seen a Taxi TV episode talking about lead-ins, and they said, you know, the best ones are the ones that go bum bum ba, you know, or da 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 da, and just go right into it. And I said, all right, I can do that. I ended up using this cue as the background music for a video game that I coded up for Christmas with the Unity Lego set. I'll show you a brief peek at that after we finish this. So first, let's listen. Let's see. Quiet you. There you go. See, they want to give you a sneak peek. That was Memories and Daydreams. The reviewer said, I dig the ambient and atmospheric vibe created by the reverb and delay, but the track is a bit too repetitive even for lo-fi. needs some jazzier elements and could use a little more development and variety. Mix could be grittier with the main instruments lower in the mix and could use a little bit more development and variation. Well, I'm definitely not an expert on lo-fi, and this was literally my first attempt, so I have to admit there are a gazillion things that I don't know. I don't actually, I tried to listen to as much as I could in the week before I sat down to do it, but, I don't know. But I was thankful for the chance to branch, and I'll keep trying until I get it right. It's very easy for me to add more, and what was hard about this cue was trying to keep it interesting without keeping adding more. It's always my instinct to add in, oh, there's a space here, I can add in, the Howard Jones method of hook writing. There's two measures, I can write something really cool that goes in there. But it's a balance. I'm still trying to get it right. Enough to give movement and interest, but not so much that you can't talk over it. Anyways, all right, so moving on. We got to the end of 2020, and one of the complaints that I had gotten over previously was that my strings did not sound good enough. It was a very legitimate comment. So Taxi Road Rally came, and they did a demo on the Vienna Symphonic plugins that really wowed me. And since they were given a discount, I decided to take the plunge and purchase my first ever plugin. It's funny, right? How did I get this far without ever having done that? Especially as a keyboard player. Thanks, Taxi, for the kick in the pants, because I clearly needed it. I didn't write this next one for a specific cue. I actually wrote it as a piano exercise in the 90s, and I digitized it from an old cassette because I thought this would be the perfect test for the Vienna Orchestra. And I paired this with one of the very first Disneys, and the result is absolutely adorable, and so I just have to share it. So if it doesn't put a smile on your face, there's something wrong. There you go. That was my 2020 recessional. I was so happy to be done with that year that it was just joyous. And what I was writing it for originally was for epic family friendly fantasy trailer style instrumentals, and that definitely didn't fit. It wouldn't have made it for that type of thing. But it was fun, and it was a good practice to do it. And it was really just me trying out this plugin and saying, okay, what can I do with it? So now I was ready to get something serious, and just in time, this call came out for epic family-friendly fantasy trailer instrumentals. I had never done a trailer before. And you know, it's way harder than it looks. I've watched tons of Taxi TVs on structure and builds and acts and risers. I decided, why not? I'll give it a go. I guess we all imagine some sort of thing in our mind as we work, as you write and produce. You know, you close your eyes and you think of something. In my mind, as I was writing this was the opening scene of Much Ado About Nothing. It just kept aligning with the music for me, and I thought it would be fun to match them up. Unfortunately, the intro of the Branagh Much Ado is 10 minutes long. And the cue call was for 3.5, 4 minutes long. So it was way. So I had to do some fairly liberal editing to make it fit, but I think it works. If you were offended by butts, turn away.
Letter that Don Pedro of Aragon comes this night to Messina.
Go. A heartwarming tale of adventure was what I called it. Well, the reviewer came back, and again, this was my first attempt at a 4-act trailer. So I'm going to just say it's not nearly on the level of many that I hear on Taxi, but something I couldn't have even hoped to have tried a year ago. So the reviewer came back with, this could be good as a background cue for a game like Zelda. The instrumentation feels a little stiff, and it would need to be mixed better. And But I would use better sound elements to distance myself from the quote normal sound. And then he said, not broadcast quality. Mixing needs to be improved. Well, the first two I actually took as huge compliments, even if they weren't particularly meant as them. It would be a dream beyond belief to write music for Zelda. Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, video games are absolutely a market I would love to spend time in. And you know, that is a franchise that's amazing, who has always had great music. And while I know that everyone is bored with quote normal, sometimes it's exactly what's needed for a call, and you just never know. And so that was actually what I was going for in this attempt, was something that was very old school, sort of a normal orchestral trailer that you might have heard. But I definitely understand what it was missing, and I will definitely do a better job next time. It does sound stiff, and they were spot on for that. But this was the first time ever I got the not broadcast quality checkbox, and it freaked me out. And lo and behold, they were right. Something had happened. I was listening to my mixes through a USB mixer, but it was being recorded through the Windows driver thing, which then Windows updated, and there was a... So long story short, it was my fault. I hadn't double checked, but I was listening in through one sound signal path, but it was mixing through a different signal path. And I didn't double check it. I just submitted it. Yeah. So lesson learned. Yeah, double check. It's in the wing. Should we need another? Any new Zelda games in the works? Just saying. Okay. So we're last two. The last thing I submitted for this year was another call for relaxing new age ambient instrumental artists. I had had some success here before. And I tried to take all of the lessons and put it together. Closed my eyes and imagined I was in a spa or meditating in front of an altar. Hit record and played this pretty well, note for note, front to back. Lots of drawn out space. I literally doubled in some strings and voices with the same MIDI thing, and it flowed so well. That was like, I was having so much fun, and it happened so fast that I did a second one. We'll get back to that in a minute, but let's listen to this. Right. That was Morning Lotus. And the reviewer came back and said, I like the subtle and intimate use of the piano over the transparent sustain on this relaxing new age ambient instrumental. Nice work. Good job. Meets the listing request. Forward. Awesome. So that was the third. That was my third forward. And my immediate response was, "Ooh, yes," followed quickly by, why didn't I submit the other one? Because there was this other one that I wrote the same night. And I'm going to play it for you because, mostly because the video sync that I did for it is jaw-droppingly awesome. It's a visualization from the European Southern Observatory, and it's based on real astronomical data. Their music was like, oh, really big, and I thought, no, the way to go with this is Cosmos. You go Vangelis and go really, really subtle. So this is what I did with it. Right, and that one was Eagle Pose, because, yoga studio. I was really, my goal I did Morning Lotus, Eagle Pose. I was going to just knock them out. And so why didn't I submit that? And I wanted to talk about that as my last thing. Anyone think that might have made it through? I do. If the other one did, I think that one was even better. Fortunately, there's no shortage of these calls, and it'll be back around. Why didn't I submit? Because self-doubt is a very powerful form of resistance. Something else I learned about on Taxi this year. Well, okay, something that was given a name on Taxi this year, something I'm probably the world's expert on, otherwise. For those that saw the episode of Taxi TV with Greg Carosa, he made a "I don't suck" comment. And it really made me laugh. For each of us, the self-confidence ladder is like the hardest thing to climb, especially at the beginning. I mean, I think Greg's work and a fair majority of the other Taxi members that I've heard are like really great, like really, really great. Like I'm not even in the same ballpark great. But ironically, Taxi is a legit tool for improving one's self-confidence. After a year and a few forwards for perhaps the first time in my musical life, I can say, at least with a tiny bit of confidence, that my material doesn't necessarily suck. And it grows with each forward and also with each return, because knowledge of what needs fixed is so much better than not knowing what needs fixed. Sure, I've always thought what I wrote was fine, artistically, right? Who doesn't? You submit it, you think it's great. But I feel like I've taken a step forward this year in all of this. For the first time in a long time, I feel closer to the goal than I did a year ago. And that's progress. You know, my workflow is now set. My gear is pretty well set. My sounds are getting better. My understanding of how to read the listings has improved. I've learned more of where I fit into the opportunities and what I'm good and not good at. Again, thanks to Ed Hartman. I did not mention his name when I renewed, and I should have. I will try to give a call back and see if we can get him some credit for the referral, because Ed, if you're out there, thanks for the push. If you get a chance, see the film he scored. It's called As the Earth Turns. You should check it out. He really did a great job. It's astheearthturns.com, I think. And of course, big thanks to Michael and all the screeners and everyone at Taxi. I rarely get to watch episodes live. I teach university, and I am often full up with students, especially on Mondays, since everything in my classes due on Sunday night. But I've watched many, 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 many episodes of Taxi this year, and it's strange. I feel like I know you all a little bit. It's kind of creepy. I've been hanging out with you vicariously. And in a sense, that's with COVID. That's what's been going on. That's the community. But it's been really kind of cool to see, considering all the problems I had getting this stream going on YouTube. Well, we were like half an hour late or something. So sorry. I really appreciate what you do even so much more, because how do you do that every day and make it look so easy? It's really impressive. So one of my goals for 21-22 is to be more active on with submissions and the forums. I can't wait to see what the next year brings. And I thought, I felt like I did pretty good this year for a first year. I'm never going to be the guy that writes 500 cues a year. That's just, I have so many other things that are happening. That's never really what I want to do. I would be so stoked to get, one song and happen. And, I'm not doing this for fame and fortune. I'm doing it because I just love doing it. And I can't help doing it. I'm going to do it. So I might as well try to submit it. Maybe somebody will actually want to use it. And if nothing else, I have proof that I don't suck. And there's something to that. But for now, this whole exercise has been another version of resistance. Me finding things other than to write and submit music. So that ends today. I should show you my desktop. I'm going to try to do this as the last thing, because you'll laugh. It says, busy hands or broken fingers. Hopefully I got that generally right. Oh, it says busy hands are broken. You didn't see the other one. Yeah, busy hands are broken fingers is what it said. So there you go. And maybe it'll inspire me to get to work. For those who came by now or later, I hope this was helpful. It was something I thought I could do to contribute. One of the things that Michael said on the Taxi TV was, if you want to become part of the community, then do something to contribute. And I went, that's good. That's right. And so this is, what can I do? I'm the newbie. So this is something I can do. So there you go. Wishing you all well. Thanks for stopping by, and looking forward to next year. Peace.